Hey guys, this won't be a regular tip video, but I figured I'd weigh in on my thoughts on the Madden 22 beta. I know it's already been some time now. I think it's already maybe a week or so since it's been shut down, and there's plenty of videos out there that go over official things about the game and some of their thoughts and opinions and everything like that. So that's kind of been and gone, but I do still want to give my thoughts on it. Hopefully different takes than what you've seen. So if you haven't played it and if you want to know some more detailed thoughts on it, or if you have played it and you just want to hear more thoughts on about it because you're a Madden head and you just can't get enough content even at this stage in the game. So yeah, I mean, what I have here is essentially just my notes, or a more generalized, shortened version of my notes that I take when I do the beta. Just things to give feedback on, or just things for myself to check out throughout the year, just so I don't forget about them. So here are some things that I found interesting throughout it. We'll start off with just some smaller things. And then towards the end, I'll give some thoughts on like movement and momentum and some of the more obvious big things that everybody kind of has opinions on. In general, there isn't too much new with this game, at least in terms of gameplay. Like I understand that franchise was kind of overhauled, and although I don't play franchise, I'm excited for everybody to have something new there to really dig into. But for me, gameplay is always king, and unfortunately, this year, that clearly, took a back seat. But that's okay. We'll always have other years, and I think there's enough in terms of the next, quote unquote, next gen movement, that we can still have fun with it in terms of having slightly different gameplay. Some things are better, some things are worse. But even if they came out with a new one, and it's nothing changed, I really wouldn't care. I like the game just perfectly well, just the way it is now, and I'm always going to have fun competing online, and of course making these videos with you guys. Anyway, so let's get into my first note here. I noticed and some of these things, I don't know if they're necessarily intentional improvements or if they just turn out to be this way. So the first one I have here is man coverage shading. So a big thing that I noticed is, like, say, an inside shade really works on your on inward breaking routes. So this maybe isn't the case against, like, say, compression or slot receivers, or tight ends, and things like that. But certainly, if you're running press man with inside shade on some of those outside receivers, running a slant or like a little quick in, or maybe even a dig route. I forget if I checked. Definitely post routes. They're almost, you just can't throw them. Even if you have the matchup, like the wide receiver is better, if you have that inside shade there, it's going to be taken away. But the great thing about this is that you can see that pre-snap. You can see that it's inside shade. So maybe you want to look towards out breaking routes. Now it's not like super perfect. Like if you do an outside shade, all corner routes and things like that are going to be taken out of the game, out of contention. And then on the other side, if all inside shaded routes are going to be all taken away. So it's not that clear cut and dry, but I think it's a lot better than it was before. Now I don't know if this is intentional or just a byproduct of the new movement, but it looks really cool to me. And of course, off man coverage, like shading underneath, is still really aggressive like it was last year. I think it wasn't. I thought it was cool when they added it last year, but really I don't think anybody really made use of it. But it's still nice to see that there's some. It's not just all just call man coverage and forget about it. There's still a little bit of tweaking there that you can have a little bit of fun with the chess match. Next one is blitzes with an exclamation point. So it seems, and this one's tough to say, maybe it's just because the teams, like I was just playing regs, and the ratings aren't high in general, but it seems like blitzes are back. Like even just stock blitzes, like say if you call the buck slant type of blitzes, Where you're sending a nickel and you're sending the mic on kind of a looping blitz behind him, and then you'll drop a backside edge defender into coverage, and you'll have like a fire zone coverage above that. Those seem to be really good just on their own, and then just a number of other blitzes work really, really well. Just stock, right? But what I've noticed, if you just do something simple, like say, IDing or sliding towards that side or blocking the running back, then you can pick that up. So it's not like they're completely unblockable. But, if you're coming up against somebody that isn't taking pass protection into account, and then you hit them with this blitz, it can be really good for me. Not for me, for you if you use them. So that was really cool. Now, I do worry throughout the year, everybody's going to be trying to cook up the best blitzes. I do worry that there will be some blitzes found that are like almost completely unblockable. That's the thing, like we want pass protection to be in a way that it's not psychic, that it picks up absolutely everything, and then the small window of things it doesn't pick up, it gets nano detected and taken out. We want it to be in the position that it is now, where blitzes can actually come through, and then you can do some adjustments to protect for that. But I'm afraid that if they do that, then that leaves open a window for some potential unblockable super blitzes. But we'll just have to see how they turn out. I mean, they can always, I'm sure, tune the pass protection logic back to what it was if it's a really big problem. But for now, I'm excited because, like almost half of the, like probably over half of the defensive playbooks are blitzes. And right now, they're pretty much completely useless. Like you're either sending the house or you're dropping everybody into coverage. Like if you're playing Madden 21 or even the few Maddens before that, if you're sending 5, like it's just almost one of the worst things you can do because you have not much coverage and then you also don't have the pressure. So anyway, that's that. One huge thing that I noticed, and I don't know, my hopes are low for this one, but I noticed that coaching adjustments weren't in practice mode. And I guess the same is for Madden 21 Next Gen. For some reason, they don't have coaching adjustments in practice mode, which is obviously a huge deal. Not just for me as a practice mode content creator, but also for anybody that's hoping to develop some game plans, either on the defensive side or the offensive side. It's much harder because you can't practice against or with your zone drops, which I think are still going to be really important this year, and then plus all the other little things that you can do in the coaching adjustments. So that was really, really disappointing to see. Hopefully they get that down the road. But I think these kind of quality of play, quality of competition, things that the power users of this game use, I think those are pretty low priority, unfortunately. I didn't play around with it too much, but enough to make a note that polling guards on power seem to turn upfield a little bit better. So power might be a little bit better this year, which is kind of cool. There are a number of new plays in terms of offense in the game. A lot of them have auto motions, and if you know Madden now and pretty much all the Maddens up to it, the auto motion is really just kind of annoying, unless you're talking about the jet sweep stuff. But auto motion's annoying because you can't take it out. Like you can't hot route that guy to not auto motion because it kind of gives a tell to the defense. But the other thing is just it's so slow. First of all, they just jog across the field, and then once they're almost in position, they take like 100 micro steps, and it just completely ruins the momentum and ruins the flow of things, and you just almost never want to use them. They have some new ones that seem to have some really nice auto motion, smooth auto motion animations, but those legacy ones still exist. So there's some cool new ones. Hopefully at some point they redo them all or just allow us to take them out completely. There is another thing. So there's a number of. Actually, I won't even say that one. That one's kind of boring. One small thing I saw, which is really cool, is the give up animation. I think I actually tweeted about this, but I just it's so stupid and unimportant. But I thought it was cool. The give up with the ball carrier, so you're not diving, but you're just giving up, falling on the ground. I think it's a lot cooler this year. You just kind of just falls down, sits down. It's real casual, really quick. Just something nice about it. When you get the game, definitely try it out. I don't know, it's weird, but it's there. They have, I think the next 2 points here are related. There's a lot of new RPOs being put into the game, particularly with Kansas City, but a number of other books have some really unique and cool RPOs. And I think there's going to be a focus on adding many RPOs down the road. I think, the first generation of RPOs that we got, most of them were really just screens, like bubble screens and smoke screens, or little slants, something like that. So it's really just like a first level, some second level RPOs, which is okay. But when you look at real football, they're doing all sorts of wild things with post routes and out routes and fades and things like that. And though we do have some of those sprinkled in Madden 21 here and there, they're not that plentiful, and they're not super well designed either. But the new ones, there's a lot of cool new ones. Doing more and more second level RPOs, with out routes and hitches and things like that, and then also third level RPOs with wheel routes and posts that are really going to be, if you're using them, really powerful. And then if you're coming up against them, they can be really tricky to defend in terms of, first, how do we defend it? Second of all, how do we defend it without giving up everything? So I think, for whatever reason, the RPOs were never super popular online. But I think more and more they will be. And I think, if you're listening to this, you should get a head start on using some of this stuff, because I think, that's the way football is going now. And I think that's the way Madden will be going now too, because this stuff is just going to be too good to ignore. And if you're not using it yourself, I think you're going to be struggling a bit to find out how to defend it. So really awesome stuff. And I'm going to be doing a number of videos on that early on. RPOs also, I noticed a couple, or maybe it was just one in Kansas City, has some really interesting option route logic. It's just this one route, but I think it has a hint towards maybe some updated logic for option routes in the future. So I don't know if you remember, I made a video. It didn't do super well, but it was just like a small kind of video of the annoyances I had on option routes in the game, where they're mostly just determined on, is there a guy on man coverage on him, or is it zone coverage? And then also how many deep zones are in it. And that posed problems where, say, if you're against cover 2, you'd want an outside receiver to run a fade. But if your opponent put like the middle read guy into a deep third, which almost everybody does, then the game thinks that's kind of a cover 3, and that option route will run a hitch instead of a fade. And then you just can never really trust what your receiver is going to do on your option route. But this one that I noticed, it is actually dependent on simply the technique of the guy that's on him. So if he's playing off coverage, he'll run his, I forget if it's a hitch or a short out or something like that. But if it's pressed up with like a cloud coverage or man coverage or something like that, he will convert to a fade. So it's not dependent on the coverage in general, like how many deep zones are there. It's really just that one receiver. And then it makes it so, you can see the technique that's being played by that defender, and then you can anticipate what your receiver is going to do, whether he's going to hitch it off, break it off, or fade it over the top. So I think that's really cool. I think just that one. Maybe there's some other ones, but hopefully it's a hint or a small change of things that are going to be happening in the future. On the defensive side of things, unfortunately, there were no big additions. Again, there weren't really any gameplay changes with this game. So really, the playbooks are the same. No new coverages, no new anything like that. Unfortunately, just a few small things here and there that likely will not get communicated to you. But I'll definitely be doing my best to, first of all, tell you here, and second of all, go over in many videos in Madden 22 that I'm going to be excited to do. One thing is mid-read zones seem to be improved in Cover 2 or Tampa 2. Before, they didn't work against trips, so you could run the number 3 guy right up the middle of the field, and the mid-read will just totally ignore him, and then you just split the safeties and you get your big one-play touchdown. But now he actually recognizes him and will run with him down the field. So that's really, really cool. I don't know if it means that you can get away with not putting him in a deep middle third, because I think those safeties still struggle against like post routes and things like that from the side. But at least it's better than it was before. So if you want to run Cover 2 and you don't want to completely ruin your run fits, you could do that and then maybe run some soft squats on the side, or if you want to just get some depth as a user with the vertical hook. Those could be some good options there. And I think Cover 2, the cloud flat zone's got some interesting, I don't know if I want to say improvements or just behavioral changes that could make Cover 2 potentially more usable this game. In terms of match coverages, we still have many issues with deep zones, like in terms of covering crossing routes and things like that, but I think that's something that will be tuned and tweaked and worked on, because I think that was in their notes that is still to come. So high hopes for that. But some smaller things, there have been improvements on Cover 4 quarters, how it plays box, or how it plays against bunch, essentially. So there was 2 big issues with that this year. Number one, there was the box bug, where if you run a hitch or like a curl or like a dig or something like that with your number 3 receiver, like the interior guy of the bunch, and then if you run just a streak with the point guy, the number 2, that strong safety on the bunch side will come down on the curl and then will be too late to transition back and cover that streak from the point guy. And so there were ways to adjust for that, but if you're playing against somebody good and you didn't adjust for that, it's just an easy one-play score. That seems to be fixed, which is really, really nice. I didn't see any, but maybe there are issues that creates because of that, but we'll just have to see. And then the other thing is that the 3 rec, who maybe you usually user anyway, so maybe this wasn't a big deal, his duty is to match the first guy breaking inside. And he always struggled with that. So if you have like a drag coming from the bunch, he would initially cover it, but then he would just abandon it. So if you have a situation where the running back is wheeling out or flaring out and preoccupying that quarter flat, or even if he's doing like a little angle route or something like that, and if you have a drag coming from the bunch, then absolutely nobody's going to cover the drag, or even if it's a slant or something like that, he's going to get completely wide open. They rack catch that, and it turns into a big chunk of yards. Now, there are also ways of defending that, but it's nice that now it's defended like it should. So really, really nice stuff. The last thing on coverages and match coverages is Cover 6 seems to have gotten some improvements. So particularly on the Cover 2 side, and particularly against trips, what I notice is the corner now plays more of a man match technique. So what's really happening there is the corner is playing man-to-man on the solo receiver unless the back flares out, in which case he'll trap him and he'll leave the solo guy to do whatever he was doing. The way it works right now is that usually those are soft squat zones in the Cover 6, and what he'll do is he'll match a vertical route by the solo guy unless the back flares out, which is kind of the same thing, but now he'll play man-to-man on that solo guy. So it's not just vertical routes, he's man-to-man everywhere he goes unless the back flares out. Now, it's not still foolproof. Like the vertical hook inside still pretty much does nothing. So maybe you want to user him and take over on that drag or whatever. But I think that the cover 2 safety on that cover 6 does a better job as well, covering like digs and posts and things like that on that solo receiver should that corner vacate him. I know this stuff is kind of hard to visualize with words, but you know I'll be doing videos on this as soon as we possibly can. But what's interesting about this, I think it hints at perhaps more man match coverages rather than the zone match that we're used to with, you know, cover 3 match, cover 2 sync, and even some of the quarter stuff. To see more man match where it's really just these guys are playing man. Unless we get a certain round combination, then those guys will play man on somebody else rather than just, okay, we're playing zone. If this happens, we're going to play man. So hopefully some new stuff coming. Maybe not this year, but next year in terms of the match coverage stuff. One big thing that is clearly needed, like just explaining to you right now, that a soft spot zone is doing man coverage except for if the back goes to the flat. I think an artwork overhaul is absolutely needed, particularly for match coverage, because really nobody just looking at it would know, okay, that's what's going to happen. You have to like actually take it to practice mode and see everything that's going on to understand what's going to happen. Some other things I noticed, which is kind of cool. Cover 0 seems to have some halfback peel logic. So what you'll see is if you're running cover 0 and the back flares to the opposite side of the defender that's manned up on him, what'll happen is the edge defender to the side the back flares out on will pick him up man to man, and the original guy that had him in man coverage adds into the blitz. So I don't know if, this wasn't in the game in Madden 21. But what's weird about it is that for regular man coverage, like cover 2 man or cover 1, this still happens. So maybe it's a bug. But if it's just for cover 0, I think it makes a lot of sense, because if you have, like, say, a free safety in man coverage on the back, and the back flares to the strong safety, then, you know, it's kind of a difficult task for him to run all the way across the field to cover him. This way, you have the edge defender has leverage on him. Maybe not as good of a defender, but he's in a better position to make a play there. Again, it's kind of a difficult thing to explain, but some potentially interesting stuff there to look into when the game comes out. Okay, so the last two things, thoughts on movement and thoughts on the momentum system. So movement, I don't like it. Maybe it's more realistic. I don't know, but it doesn't feel good. It makes you feel like when you have the ball, you're just the slowest guy on the field, because I feel like defenders don't move as slow as you do when you have the ball. So like when you have the back and it's a handoff, it just feels like you're in mud, you're in quicksand. It feels like it takes forever to get to the line of scrimmage. And it doesn't feel good. I get that we'll get used to it over time, but particularly that, just a few years ago, they did like the one cut thing, and we have to get used to that. We know we have to take a step backward in order to go forward, but it just feels like we're doing that again now. And it's kind of like, why, when there's so many more interesting things that I think they could have done with the game. It feels like we're taking a step back. Plus, we lose out on other interesting things that we could have had. Plus, I don't think anybody was asking for it. Plus, I think the competitive community, in particularly, really doesn't like this stuff, and so I just don't really know who it's for. I think some people that love the realism stuff like the idea of it, but I just don't see how you could really like using it. I noticed some crazy things, like I was running a read option with the Ravens, and I had a keep read with Lamar Jackson, and that was all fine. But before I could even cross the line of scrimmage, I had a defensive lineman, it was Linval Joseph. He shed his block and caught up to me before I can get even just 1 yard. So that was really annoying. Plus, if you're running things like RPOs, like just a simple bubble, you can have him wide open, but he just takes forever to get going, forever to get any sort of momentum. And even if you're just wide open on that bubble, those defenders will catch up to you for a moderate gain. So it's not really fun, but it is what it is. I think the routes are kind of cool. Like the routes kind of look better, and I think some of the route rounding allows for some more adaptable routes, if that makes sense. Particularly with how some of the pass leads work. I think that's kind of interesting, but I don't really have any thoughts on that. Lastly, thoughts on the momentum system. I tweeted about this, but I kind of want to expand on it a little bit more. I think it's cool in a sense that some people seem to really like it, like in terms of addition to franchise and offline play and stuff like that. So I'm happy for them, and I like the idea of them putting in more strategy into the game. Like you can if you can pick some of these or whatever. Say if they're like the stadium abilities, or even if they did coach abilities in the future, just more things to think about and more decisions to make. I like that, but I feel like this implementation really seems to focus more on degrading the player experience than making it better for them, right? Because when you're playing, first of all, when I was playing the games, I wasn't sure if it was a bug with the gameplay or if it was a feature, which I think immediately isn't a good sign of things. And it's just really frustrating, right? Because like if you're in the game and you're losing, it's already frustrating, but that's on your own end. But now on top of this, they compound that, and it's just going to make things much, much more frustrating. And I think the chances of people rage quitting and just not putting up with it is just much, much higher. Thinking, okay, it's a tight game, or even if it's not a tight game, if you're getting beat handily, but sometimes you want to stick into it. Now with the addition of these annoyances, I guess it's just like, why do I really want to finish the game like this? You can kind of liken it to player abilities, this stuff. But I think it's different than player abilities because, like, say, Escape Artist, for example. Like, Escape Artist is really, especially at the very beginning, really annoying to come up against because, people just outrun your spies, outrun your contains, and things like that. But when you use it, it's really, really fun to use. You feel powerful. But for the momentum stuff, and maybe I have the wrong idea. Maybe I didn't play enough. Maybe I didn't fully understand it. But what you feel is either the gameplay is normal, like it's always been, or if you're losing, you have a big added layer of frustration. And so, like when my opponent is not seeing their hot routes, or they're missing hot routes, or they have squiggly lines or whatever, I can't see that and I can't feel that, right? So I can't feel if I'm the one that's winning or if it's just the game making it so hard on my opponent that I'm just winning anyway. So again, from a player's perspective, either you're having a normal game or you're having the user experience worsen for you. Maybe, you can think of it as, okay, here's an added challenge that could be fun. But I think the game itself, you against the other guy, is really enough of a challenge, enough to think about, that it just seems unnecessary. And then I also put this in the tweet. When player abilities first came out, I really didn't like them, and I had a lot of strong opinions about, this isn't good for competition and everything. But now I actually really like them, and I think they're actually a better system than ratings. I'd actually prefer if the game was only abilities and they just did away with ratings. Like, those ratings mean nothing pretty much. So we'll see how it goes. Well, I don't love the momentum stuff, but we'll see how it plays out this year. Maybe they'll grow on me. Maybe they'll be improved. We'll just have to see. But overall, I'm excited for the game. I had actually a lot of fun playing the beta, just kind of playing some around playing with some of the new plays and formations and things like that. And, you know, I'm always going to love Madden. I'm always going to play it. And I hope you guys follow me along in that journey. Anyway, so hope you guys like this different style of video. Hopefully maybe we can do a few more tip videos before the end of 21. And then we will move on to the next generation of things. Okay, but until then, that's it for this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.